because BYU deserves legitimate respect here in this conversation. They just keep winning, and the more that BYU does win, the more that it starts to squelch some of the narrative that, well, K-State game was a bit unlucky for them, and things really just unraveled because of some fluky turnovers. And, how good can BYU really be with like Jake Retzloff at quarterback? How legit is this? No, guys, it's legit. They keep doing this. They're crock-potting people. They're a very good team. And I think there are 5 reasons right now that you're seeing their brand blow up quite a bit in the Big 12 here. This Big 12 affiliation, I think, is really helping to blow up BYU's brand and get them way more national attention. And if you don't believe me, let me play you this clip. We'll see if this is, I just am realizing this is a Twitter clip. I think sometimes we have trouble with the audio on these, but let's play this. It's from Gus Johnson on the broadcast on Saturday.
Spectacular thing. This, folks, is a bucket list stadium.
Yeah, I agree.
This is the most spectacular thing you'll ever see. I can only imagine what it's like at night.
Effusive praise, incredible praise there from Gus Johnson. And if it was not audible enough, he said that Lavelle Edwards Stadium is a bucket list stadium. I mean, that's Gus Johnson, beloved college football voice. Everybody loves to have him come call their games. He's out there saying that about Provo as he's there, not even for a night game. He's just there taking in the scenery for a game in the afternoon, which obviously still had a great atmosphere and environment. He also goes on to say, this is the most spectacular thing you'll ever see. That's a big, big statement, man. That is a big statement from Gus Johnson, and it's great for the Cougars, and it's warranted. Obviously I'm somebody that got to experience it for the first time this year, but it is a beautiful setting. It's a gorgeous setting. Great fan support. It's unbelievable how awesome the fans are there. And it's just an overall great game day experience. You can tell that BYU has pumped a lot of time, energy, and resources into their game day experience. So they do it right. And now more people are finding out about it. A lot of what I think is helping BYU in terms of being in the conference right now is just being in a legitimate conference race that people care about because it has playoff implications. That's a huge element here that's pushing BYU's brand to the forefront more, because the more that they win and stay up near the top of the Big 12 standings, they're just going to get mentioned more and more and more. Because even if people do kind of crap on the Big 12, there is an interest in, all right, who's going to win this thing and who will be in the playoff? Because the national picture and a lot of the casuals come into, all right, who's going to be in the playoff? So if you're an independent team, right, especially now that we're getting these auto bids for conference champs, if you're an independent team and you're BYU this year, even if you are undefeated, probably still not generating as much attention. There would be some, and people saying, all right, could you get the G5 spot? But it's more when you're at the top of an actual conference and winning games in the actual conference and getting better TV windows because of that. Like that's definitely another piece of this. You're getting to use Big 12 TV windows here, playing on Fox at 3:00 with the A crew, with Gus Johnson, Joel Klatt. Fox brought Big Noon Kickoff there. There was great footage all weekend of like Urban Meyer, who obviously was the head coach of Utah once upon a time, interacting with like students and BYU fans. Matt Leinart, all those guys looked like they were having a blast, which shocked me 0%, but it just created so much great publicity and great buzz for the game day experience at BYU, which is awesome and well-deserved. I would also say that being in the Big 12 energized the fan base, which helps. And I saw that right away from the response that I got from all you BYU fans once I started doing this and you guys were joining the conference. It was amazing. And you could just tell like the genuine excitement that was there. And that was such a huge thing for the fan base, which just helps get everything going. That's a part of the engine that can run the whole operation. I would also really tell you that I think being in the Big 12, that pushed the program. You needed a push, and we're seeing the result of a push from BYU's program in a 5-7 year last year into what they are this year. That was, I think, a humbling experience for BYU last year, especially when the start was so good and then it flipped on its head and limped to the finish line. But if 5-7 last year, if you were not in the Big 12, for instance, if you're BYU and you go 8-4 against an easier schedule as an independent, you're probably not going to be as pushed to make bigger changes to the program this year to elevate your program. But when you come into a conference and you go 5-7, now all of a sudden it's all right. Well, that's not really acceptable and where we want this program to be. It's an eye opener and it exposes some warts that you now know that you need to get covered up. And they wouldn't have even ever been exposed had you just still had the independent schedule. So I believe that's another thing really pushing BYU forward here because they are in the Big 12. And then back to more of like a branding perspective here, I would just finish off by saying not only is Gus Johnson being exposed to BYU for, I assume, the first time. I don't know if Gus said that. Maybe someone can fill me in if Gus said that on the broadcast or not, but it certainly felt like the way he was talking about it, that it was his first time there. So you're exposing a voice of college football like Gus Johnson to it for the first time, but you're exposing a lot of new fan bases to it as well. I really had no idea. I mean, somebody commented in one of my BYU videos that I did recently, I believe it was the one talking about my experience there for the K-State game. I had called it like the most underrated atmosphere in college football. And someone said, no, it's not underrated. Like, obviously, we've known about this for years. And I said, well, okay, fair enough. I'm a massive college football fan, worked covering college football on a professional basis for a decade. I didn't really know much of anything at all about the backdrop, the environment, any of that at Lavelle Edwards until BYU joined the Big 12. And then I started paying attention. So you're just getting so much more exposure to so many more fan bases and big, large, passionate fan bases that care. But it's clear, no matter what happens the rest of the year, man, this has been really beneficial for BYU. Really beneficial. The way it's happened, the wins that they have, the attention that their environment is getting, and the fact that they just do everything in such a first-class way there, that anytime you do get someone coming in and saying, hey, we need to pay some attention to this here, like Fox did with Big Noon Kickoff and all that, you meet the moment. You're ready to meet the moment. And BYU has certainly been ready to meet the moment. It's been such a perfect marriage between the Big 12 and BYU in terms of something that I think has been very mutually beneficial for both parties. And we're seeing the fruits of that labor and everything come to fruition this year with the season that the Cougars are having. So congratulations to BYU. Shout out on another great win with a defense. Yeah, talking about like a crock-potting sort of effort. That's really what it felt like against Arizona. Forced a bunch of turnovers, got Arizona totally out of sorts when the turnovers started happening. And BYU's offense is efficient enough, and they make plays enough when they need to be able to lock it down. Jake Retzloff is certainly good enough when everything else is functioning at that kind of level for BYU.